for me, it started with a short story, which was entitled The Kentucky Star. And Rob Horton, who's the main character in The Tiger Rising, showed up in this short story as a secondary character. And when I finished the short story, I kept on thinking about Rob, or he kept on thinking about me. I don't know which way that was. And I couldn't get him out of my mind. And my mom was living in Florida at the time, and she called me one day and told me that a tiger had escaped from a zoo down there. And I just kind of had this small epiphany. That's what this boy is waiting for. What he needs is a tiger. So I like almost literally hung up on her and, you know, like raced in and started to write. And it became this book about grieving and friendship and finding a way to honor the sadness and to live in the world with the sadness. So that's where it started for me.
This started a little bit differently. Yeah, actually, Deborah had taken me over to an agent's office, and we were talking about some things that I'd written, and I was talking about maybe adapting something, and Jason Dravis just went over to his bookshelf and he pulled out this book and he handed it to me. And before this, Jason had read some scripts that I'd done, which he'd liked, and they were all comedy based at the time. And he handed me this book and I said, The Tiger Rising, yeah, I know, Kate, I haven't read this book, you know, but what's it about? And he said, well, it's about a boy who's lost his mom. And I remember saying, Jason, what's funny about this? Yeah. And he said, nothing, literally nothing.
Go, Jason.
Yeah, and I said, Jason, what makes you think I have the sensibility to adapt something like this? He goes, I don't know, man, I just got a feeling, you know? And I remember, okay, at first I didn't take it too seriously. I took the book and threw it in my bag. And I was on a flight to New York one day, not too long after. I picked it up and I read it, and I realized I couldn't put it down. And I just connected with Kate's wonderful story and her wonderful characters. And I don't know, I could smell the in the woods, you know, in Kate's words there. And it just became very visual in my head. And by the time we landed, I had my laptop open. I was starting to jot out some ideas because it, you know, I mean, Kate's book, it's not a big book, no, but every word means something, you know, it's rich there. And what was great too, though, is what she left out, which kind of engages your imagination. You kind of read between the lines. So, yeah, that flight and that book read got me hooked. So thank you, Jason and Deb, for introducing.
Absolutely.
And Ray, how long ago was that?
Oh,
that was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Right. I mean, that's a big thing to talk about, you know. It's and an important thing to talk about, because I think that so many of us who want to make movies or tell stories or make any kind of art, you think that if you're supposed to do it, if it's what you're meant to do in the world, it's all going to come easily and it happens quickly. And that's not the case at all. Right?
Isn't it usually the opposite, right?
Yeah, you know, there's that great quote, a writer is somebody who writing is especially hard for, you know, and it's just like, it is not easy. And I think it's something that we don't talk about a lot. And I think it's a good thing to talk about. And, you know, it's like that 10 years was probably frustrating, but also probably gave you a lot too. You know
what? There's a graphic that I see every once in a while on social platforms, and it's like a line chart, and it shows, you know, something like start and end goal and how we get there. It's like this straight line, what we think. And then the other chart next to it is reality, and it's start and end, but there's a squiggly, crazy line
Right.
there. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. And then
The business side of it
yeah, the
is
business
really
part.
the tough part. You know,
the
that's,
art is one
the
thing.
art is, you know,
Yeah.
has its own, you know, rhythm, and but it's so much more enjoyable and more inspiring. But then when you get to the business part, because it is the business of making movies, it is a business.
Right. It is a
That's
business.
That's where you get a little bit frustrated, and it could take a little bit longer than normal. But you said something about, you know, there's something about the power of art in every one of us, in my opinion. We're all creative beings, right? No matter what age you are. And the expression of your creativity is your art, whether it's actually drawing or writing, or it's actually doing mathematics, or, you
Right.
know, all have those gifts within us, right? And the art that we've been given is not for ourselves, it's for others. And I think sometimes it just takes time. And along the journey, I really feel strongly about this, whether it's called art or a dream that's in line with your passions and your purpose. At times you get frustrated and you may want to give up on it, but it never gives up on you.
Right. Well, it makes me think when you say that, Deb, it makes me think of Rob following me around saying, you know, I want something, I want something, I want something. And, you know, write this story for me. And so, right, the art doesn't give up on us.
You know, it's a deep story. We're dealing with deep issues here. I thought maybe it needs just like a little bit of comedy, you know, and comedy's a hard word there, but just a little bit of levity in there, just to kind of lighten the load and give like the viewer a little bit of a break in between some of the heavier moments, you know. And Deb and Jason both, yeah, that's probably, give that a shot, you know.
That's what you do well on his comedy.
So then, you know, I did a touch up through there, and then I gave it to Deb and to Jason, and I remember Jason going, we should send this to Kate.
Yes, I remember that. I was like, really?
Really?
Oh my
really?
goodness. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And it's also one of those things where, you know, when I stand up in front of kids and talk to them, and it's like, well, why is the movie different than the book? And, you know, there's so many different ways to explain that. And one of them is that they're different art forms, and they have different demands in order to be successful. But it's also this thing of, you know, you can, and I learned this with, you know, working with Wayne Wang and because of Winn-Dixie, it's just like the story has its own, it's there, and it can you can stay true to it, and you can also riff off of it, and those lighter moments that you bring are so necessary, you know, and only deepen the sorrow, and you know, because it's that contrast, so it works incredibly well.
You know, in all honesty, that when I did kind of add some of those comedic bits, I was really just trying to read in between Kate's lines as if Kate had written more, you know, and like what did she leave out here? What's in my imagination that she left for me, you know? So, and who are these characters? What could they and would they have done, you know? So so that's kind of, you know, it's hard for me to say, you know, I added comedy to Kate's wonderful book, but it was just trying to see what, you know, what would Kate have written here if we had more pages, you know?
Yeah, not to give away anything in the movie because you'll see it, but just the one scene, just the comedic side, when Sistine comes running into the bedroom and they're gonna go see the tiger, and when Rob lets her into the bedroom, into the hotel apartment room to get the keys, his clothes are everywhere. He's like left everything a mess. And then in his imagination, he's seeing clothes everywhere hanging around, literally.
Dirty socks and underwear.
Everything. And it's suspended in space. Well, that's what we did with visual effects. We suspended. We saw it through Rob's imagination. And it just, that moment, just like, that's one of those moments that you added to bring a little, you know, a lightness to it, and to bring, and to actually, as you said, more contrast to what was getting ready to happen too. And
right. And that goes to, like, you know, it's Rob's imagination, and
Yeah.
that's what you tap into so beautifully. Like when, and again, not to give anything away, but when the art that Rob loves and that lives in his head is always alive for him, right? And so what you've done here, and those are some of my favorite moments that you've added, that the art that Rob sees comes alive, because that's the way it is for him. And you've been, and that's what you know, it's like you've brought his imagination to the screen, and it's a beautiful, a lonely, hurting boy's imagination to the screen, and it shows the consolations of art, and at the same time it does that thing where it lightens things too.
So we have this great book, we have, you know, a pretty good script here. How does this become a movie though? I got to tell you, this is where a producer then starts, the analogy that we've used over time is like, she starts pushing a boulder up a hill.
yeah.
Oh, so you're like Sisyphus, right? And it just rolls back down every, yeah.
Just don't let it fall back down on you.
And then, you know, you get so far up the hill, hey, somebody likes it, hey, they think we'll make it, and oh no, they can't do it, and you get run over. Deb has gotten run over by that boulder.
That's why I'm short.
Many times in those 10 years. So
but we did it. One thing, my daughter, when she was what 6 or 7 years old, and she used to say, people would say, well, what does your mom do for a living? And they go, oh, she takes people to lunch. Because
that's what a producer
does.
You
do so much over meals, you know. It's crazy. But really what a producer does, they do a lot of things. They wear a lot of hats, and there's all different types of producers. The creative producer, which is what Ray and I have been on this movie, because he was my partner in producing this too. He did a lot of heavy lifting as well. And so it takes a village. But we basically, it's you're shepherding and you're nurturing the creative elements. That it starts with you know, an amazing author that has a voice that matters and says something that matters in a book, and then you get a screenwriter that captures that on the page. That takes a while to get it till it's really a good movie on a page, or a series on a page. That takes a bit of time, guys. And then once you're about ready, then you can start to slowly take it out, to introduce it to either director. In this case, Ray was the director, or if you're looking for a director to get his vision on it. And then next thing you know, the creative producers also starting to attach elements, which we call actors, because sometimes you need to have an actor that means something to a script to bring it value. Not that it's not valuable in its own right, but for the business side of it that we talked about, you need an actor to show that, hey, this really means somebody's going to star in this. It's going to put people in seats, or people are going to want to watch on their streaming platforms. So it's that constant nurturing of the creative elements and managing them. And then you get to the business side of it. And then you have producers that come in with money and financing. And that's a whole other gift. And that's a whole other realm. But as a creative producer, you have to work with that. And then once you finally get ready to make it, right?
I got a question.
Yeah.
I got a question, because it is always, it's just like all of us who aren't in Hollywood, and it's like, it's always interesting, this division of producers, creative producer versus the producer who comes in as kind of an investor. Which producer is responsible for finding somebody who builds the sign of the Kentucky Star Motel? So can you get that and show it to us, the little sign behind you, and who turns that into the big one? How did that happen?
Oh, yeah, because that's an art form in itself.
There you go.
Right,
Oh,
right. So
Basi-
does the producer do that, or
well,
does
it's a little bit of
I'll hold it, babe.
Not bad.
No, you know what? It's a little. This is when the film production machine starts.
Mhm.
Is in the. I remember in the very earliest when we said we were doing this.
Mhm.
It was me and Deborah and our other producer, our partner Ryan.
Yeah.
The three of us in our kitchen,
Mhm.
and Ryan said, "Okay, I know how to do this financially. I think
Yes.
you know."
He was he
That
was
was the
actually the
trick, yeah.
key that turned on the engine. Yeah.
Because he said, "Okay, I can figure out how to make this right." And so I remember in our kitchen we started off with like, "Okay, well let's do a quick budget."
Yeah.
And one night here we went through it, and you kind of go through a few things where it's like line items, like the department of how many cameras do you need, how many actors do you need for how long,
how many big signs are you going to have to build?
right? Oh, what do we need to build? What can we
Yeah, wow.
right? So you
Yeah.
kind of go through a bunch of these things and you rough them in,
Yeah, you do.
right?
It's an ever evolving thing, Kate.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
very living organism. And then at some point you say, okay, let's go look for locations. And also at the same time, you're hiring department heads,
That's right.
a cinematographer,
Right.
a production designer,
Yes.
a first assistant director, a visual effects supervisor. So these guys become like my main collaborators.
Yes.
And one of those other people that kind of reports more to Deb and Ryan is the unit production manager. That's the person that says, okay, let's get all these crew, and how many grips do we need? How many electric do we need? How many locations we have to find?
Mhm.
So we start in the early part of the pre-production. There was about 5 of us in a van driving around to every motel in Georgia you've ever
South
seen.
Georgia.
And everywhere we went, we were like, they were all redone. They were all modern steel looking things. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, this ain't it. This ain't it. And then I remember
Hold it up here.
our associate producer comes back one day. She says, Ray, I've driven everywhere in Georgia. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, I think I got something for you. And we went to go see it, and we pulled up and we went, this is it. Then we looked, we saw that great motel.
Yeah.
This is great. And then we looked at the sign and we said, oh my
Wow.
goodness, this almost wants a star on the top of it.
Wow.
You won't believe this. They told us there
Yeah.
actually used to be a star up there.
Yes. When they first
You're
built the
kidding me.
hotel. I wanted to see if you could see this rendering at all. Can you see that at all, guys?
Oh yeah, is that what y'all started with? Was the
No, that was a rendition of this early sign of when the hotel.
Get out of town?
I am not kidding you. Uh-oh, hang on. Yeah.
I
there
just
you-
saw myself and I was alarmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Isn't that fantastic, guys? Yeah, the mayor of the town brought this rendition over and said, you won't believe it, but
Town Terrace.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna jot it down. You finding exactly the right place, it goes to like my experience of visiting the set, and that otherworldly kind of like, this is exactly what I imagined as I was writing. You were in exactly the right place. You were it was just like I saw it in my head.
Oh, well, you know what?
Magic.
I got to tell you, that is really flattering because we worked hard at that. And I got to tell you, I mean, it may seem simple, but we looked at, I want to say 10 or 12 different woods around Southern Georgia.
Yeah.
Just to look for something that
really
is
had the character.
cinematic, had
Yeah.
character. Oh, can the kids walk through here?
Yeah.
Will the light look good here? Where could a cage go? And
Yeah.
all these kind of things.
But I want to do a shout out to the people of Thomasville. because
Oh, yeah.
the people of Thomasville just embraced us. And in terms of these woods, it was on a plantation estate owned by a family that was so thrilled. They didn't do anything on this thing but hunt, I think.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like this big
Yeah,
area where
woodsy
it was for
area.
hunting. That's
And
exactly what it was.
they basically gave that to us for us to shoot in the woods. And we're so proud, Kate, that we were there and wanted to make your book into a film and use their property. So thank you, Thomasville.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
Yeah,
that was-
what a
you
Thomasville
want to
is
use
great.
our woods?
Yeah, exactly.
And the light coming through there was so amazing. I mean, I was there for a day, you know, a full day, but like it was like you had ordered it all right out of my imagination. So it
Yeah,
was just, yeah.
Yeah, we really were happy with that location. And but you know, a lot of it then also goes into the planning of it. You know, you sit there with our cinematographer, Shane Kelly, and we go through the schedule too, and you think, okay, well, when we're facing the cage, you know what, he says, I want the light over here, so that'll be at 3 p.m. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's when we're doing this shot at 3 p.m.
Yes.
And so we're like trying to figure out our day around where is the sun going to be in the trees when we're
there's
facing which way.
a real art form to that too.
Yeah, wow, it is so complicated. It makes writing a book just like look super easy, you know.
And so, Deb and Ray, what was that like, your first conversation with Kate about the adaptation?
You know, let me say, we didn't talk until I met y'all in person. I got to read that script. I was super impressed with it. But we never connected until I saw you face to face in Thomasville. Isn't that, I mean, it's like, it's
crazy.
odd to think about that when it's like so much of my heart and so much of your heart. And it's just this beautiful adaptation that you did, right? It's
Well,
just
thank you. You know what?
beautiful.
And talking with Dennis Quaid about the character of Beecham, you know, and I remember when we filmed this was long before Tiger King hit Netflix and people knew who, you know, Joe Exotic was. You know, I remember Dennis asking me, who is this guy? I mean, who owns a tiger? You know, so, you know, we had this, you know, director actor discussion of like, you know, what is this guy? How does this guy think? You know, what's he wear? How does he move? You know, we're having those kinds of conversations, you know. And I remember Dennis coming to me like the next day, saying, he goes, you know, I think I want to like think of Beecham like the way Rob sees him. You know, it's a little bit more from, so he's maybe not 100% realistic guy, but he's human, but it's the way Rob sees.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, right? Yeah.
You know, yeah. And so that worked in so many ways. But you know what? That's what, when you get some great artists and you give them a story, you give them some parameters, you say, this is what we're trying to do. What do you think? And wow, then you just get wonderful stuff back too.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, I'll never forget the first day on set, Queen Latifah is there, we're getting ready to do her scene, hair and makeup. We had picked up her wardrobe, we got it, you know, and she just randomly says, you know what? I think Willie May would have a gold tooth.
A gold tooth.
And I'm like, props, let's get a gold tooth. And you know, when we put it on there, and you know what, it wasn't one of those like where it's sticking out all the time. It's just a subtle little thing. And she's like, yeah, I feel like this is who she is. You know, it helped her as an artist into that role, you know.
Are there any prophetesses in your life, or have there been?
I'm looking out the window right now. I'm in Minneapolis, and it's very cold, of course. It's like 1 degree, and the skies are clear, and the sun is setting, and it's lighting up all the bare branches of the tree. So it's like these tree branches are like covered in gold. And I offer that up to you now as like this thing where prophets, prophetesses are everywhere. If you go out into the world and let the world speak to you, everything has a message for you. And that to me is so much a part of what, you know, trying to tell a story is, or trying to make a movie. It's that thing of like looking at the world and being and listening to it, and that goes to not only the tree branches and gold, but to people who walk by. Like, you know, we were talking before we started recording about Ray saying that he hopes that people, when they see this movie, leave the theater feeling more empathetic, which would be a wonderful thing. And that's somebody showing up as a prophet too, right? When you can suddenly imagine yourself into somebody else's life, and then you don't stand in judgment, and you can love them more that way.
I know that this is a conversation about literature, but the numbers sticking in my head right now are 471, 4,721, and 30. Kate, I lead off with you.
Yep, that first number is mine. Yeah, 473. Yeah,
Oh,
rejection letters. Rejection letters. Yeah.
So
Wow.
what kept you going? How did you keep getting off the mat?
You know, I think because I've had plenty of time to consider this. And I think that, you know, because I was somebody who spent almost a decade talking about wanting to be a writer and dreaming of being a writer and telling everybody I was a writer and not writing. And that decade, you know, sometimes when I talk to kids and I tell them about that time of, you know, 10 years of talking and not doing, and they say, aren't you sorry that you wasted all that time? And I'm not, because that time was the gift that then by the time I finally started writing and sending things out, I knew that I couldn't make myself talented and I couldn't make myself lucky, but it was within my control to make myself write and to make myself be relentless about sending the writing out. So that's why I could keep on going, because I knew that it was only up to me whether or not I kept on throwing my heart out there. No one else was gonna,
It's the
no
Tom
one else
Brady
cared.
approach.
Yeah, no one else cared. No one else was gonna ask me to do it. No one was gonna say, where's the story? No one, it was just me. And so and it was something that mattered to me, so I was gonna do it. So now let's hear about the 4,000 number.
There was a quote from C.S. Lewis, and it was the effect of, a friend is someone who says, you think that way too? And that's who Deb and Ray have always been to me. And that's honestly who every character in every one of your books has always been to me. But then Deb and Ray said, we wrote an adaptation of Tiger Rising. Will you read it? And I said, oh my gosh, Mom, will you pray some rosaries? I don't know how I'm going to let these guys down. There's no way this book can be adapted. And I read it, and I sat down with them, and it was 4,000 something days ago. And I said, I can't believe it. You've really captured Kate's voice.
Mike, you're not going to get away with your without explaining your third number, which is 30.
30 is the age that you started to write. So you're not someone that won the Scholastic Award at the age of 16 in Claremont, Florida. You didn't start to write until you were 30. And I love the fact, we used to joke about the fact that you got away with it for about 5 years just by wearing black turtlenecks. People thought you were a writer.
Right, well, and I was happy to tell them too, even though I wasn't doing it. And it is so funny because it's like I used to go around saying I started writing when I was 30 and I'm a late bloomer. And now at 58, I think 30 is so young, you know? It's like, what kind of late blooming is 30? 30 is, you're, you know, that's young. Yeah. But yeah, oh, I'm glad you remembered. Yeah, 30 years
Yeah.
old. Ray and Deb, it's your film. I think that you get to answer that first about what you want people to walk away with or to take from this.
Well, I think yes, I think certainly the COVID framing of the past 2 years has certainly given us a global connection of what on earth is going on, to a lot of people, and we're all handling this in different ways. As humans, we're all a little different, but we're all a little the same too, and again, I think kind of going back to what I said earlier is if we can give each other a little space, a little bit of empathy, a little bit of understanding, it'll help all of us. Just, you know what? Yeah, I'm going through something too. I may not know what you're going through, but you know what? I'm going to give you that space too.
Yeah.
That's what I hope.
And the thing for me is the keys. There's something about the keys that Rob had, and that Rob was willing to give the keys to his friend Sistine.
Needed to give those keys, kind of, yeah.
Those keys, but he got the keys first, and then he needed to give the keys to her. And I don't want to get emotional here, but I just felt like for me, in the book, and then it was so well done in the movie, right? Is we have the keys. We do have the keys to unlock and to be brave about our vulnerabilities, and that we're all human and we're all broken. And together, it's like a big mosaic. When you get all those broken pieces and it comes together. And what was it? Leonard Cohen had said, that we're all broken, but that's the way the light comes in. It was through the brokenness, right?
Right.
We have the keys, and we can share the keys, and we don't have to stay locked up.
Yeah.
I told Ray, that's the best first line of a pitch I ever heard. He said, "This is a story about cages." And I was like, "Stop right there. You can't improve it." That was killer.
And it is a story about cages. Yeah, that's so, it's so interesting. And Val and I were talking about that before anybody else got on. That Ray, that you were saying that, and it's so brilliant because we've all been kind of, in our rooms. And so it like this movie now, in this time where we've been separated from each other and also grieving, and we have that need for collective grieving, and this movie is a way to let people do that.
Yeah, timing of the film here meets people at where they need it to.
Where they need it the most. Yeah.
This weekend's the 100th anniversary of ALA. Teachers and librarians have embraced you. You've won 2 medals and an honor. And our favorite author, E.B. White, God bless him, never won the medal. He won a couple of honors, but he came up short. These people, like Catherine Patterson says, they've risked their jobs before when books have been, like Risha Terabithia was banned, The Giver was banned, and they're willing to sacrifice their livelihood to make sure that kids get access to these stories. And I honestly consider them the most heroic people in the world, the librarians. And I know you tell so many great stories about the library when you grew up. But any special message for the teachers and librarians who have introduced your stories to people and transformed their lives?
Of course, I'm going to turn on a light because I see I'm kind of looking like a Dutch master's painting here. Hold on. But I want to say this because it's 100th anniversary of the Newbery Award, and librarians. I don't know of a group of people who are more invested in civil liberties And it's like you said, Mike, I can only speak from the heart of my 8-year-old self, who loved walking into the library for a multiplicity of reasons, but not the least of which is because that was where I was seen for who I was, and that was a reader. And so I knew that was crossing the threshold into the Cooper Memorial Public Library when I was a kid, was when I became myself, my true self, my best self. And librarians give that gift all the time. There has never been a question that I've asked of a librarian, or a book that I've asked the librarian to find for me, that they have not answered the question or found the book. They are heroes, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. This little reader does, yeah.
And did they always have one waiting for you? Did they have
well, what they had for me was that the limit of books that you could check out was waived. That's what they had for me.
Yeah.
So I was never like pushed in any particular direction. Rather, I was given carte blanche, you know, take whatever you want, take as many as you want. We trust you to find your way. And that, what a beautiful gift, you know.
Amen.
Thank you to all the teachers,
Yes.
the librarians, and to everybody who believes in the power of story. You know,
That's right.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And thank you for always showing the transformational power of reading and what happens when you introduce people to stories. And in addition to Ray and Deb just so brilliantly capturing the idea about cages, talking about how transformational stories are.
Yes.
And Kate,
Yeah.
for you being fearless about human nature and the problems that kids go through. You were the first person to help tell me that Chesterton quote, which is, we don't write about dragons to scare kids. We write about dragons to let them know they can be defeated.
That's right.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kids always, in the books, kids always defeat their dragons.
Yeah.
And it always ends in joy. And we can't thank you enough. And Deb and Ray, I think you accomplished the most impossible cinematic task ever, which is, you know, adapting. Kate's books are so deep. So to get them in 90 minutes up on the screen is such a great accomplishment. I cried when I read the script. I cry every time I watch the movie. I cry when I watch the trailer. And
That's beautiful trailer. It's a beautiful movie, and it is a gift for all of us now that this book, that this movie is out there. It's just like and Deb, I think that we should end with that keys thing. Is just so fantastic, that to think about art being the key, right? Is just like, I love that. What a gift. Thank you. You know,
Kate, thank you for trusting us with your voice.
Yes.
Your heart.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
just a beautiful, beautiful thing that you know. So thank you.